I'm Cathy.
I'm Rachel, and this is Looney Book Club. I don't know why I always do the home. Today's video is the third instalment of our Stormlight Archive series, where Cathy reads the Stormlight Archive for the first time. Today we're talking about Oathbringer, which is the third novel in Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive. Now, I did offer Cathy the chance to read Edgedancer between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, but she didn't want to. But I told her the main beats that lift... I can't remember. It's clearly not that important. Lift thinks that she is 10 forever, but she isn't 10 forever. Lift can touch Windle, which is strange. Maybe we'll talk about that when we talk about Shadesmar.
Okay.
Anything else? I think that's really it. I think when I was reading Edgedancer, I was mainly struck by the fact that there are little clues to Renarin not being strictly Night Radiant. But that's it. Anyway, this video will contain spoilers for the entirety of Oathbringer and probably a little bit of Edgedancer as well, so you have been warned. Let's kick off with Cathy. Is there anything? What's your immediate reaction to Oathbringer?
Well, I finished this last night.
Mm-hmm. What time did you finish it, Cathy?
So yes, I stayed up very late last night finishing this off, and I stayed up to 1:15 in the morning to finish it. So my immediate reaction is like, particularly the last half of part 2 of Oathbringer was really exciting and dramatic, and there was so much going on, and I really enjoyed staying up late into the night to just be in that world.
I have a question. What would you say was the start of the Sanderson?
Oh, I think when they're in the meeting and all these reports start coming in that Dalinar, like against Dalinar, like he's been politically manoeuvred, so everybody loses faith and everybody leaves. And then it's almost immediately after that they realise, oh, we're under attack. And I think also just after that, Dalinar gets his final bits of memories back about going to the Night Mother and meeting Cultivation. That all was really, really cool. So I'd say I definitely love the last 200 pages. I think when I think back over my experience of reading the whole thing, which has taken a couple of months,
Is it really?
I think so.
Wow. Sorry, please continue.
I don't think I read it all in July. I can't remember now. It feels like a long time ago. I think I read Oathbringer Part 1 really quickly, really loved it, and then I read a couple of books in between.
Okay.
I think I found the first part of Oathbringer Part 2, I struggled a bit to get back into the swing of it. And there were some bits that dragged for me, but then once we got near the end of this, I was just in it. Okay. First
Off, in our last video, you said, oh, maybe Dalinar can't remember his wife because he killed her. And I sat there thinking, do not react, do not react, do not react. How? Where did that moment of inspiration come from?
Yeah, I never get predictions right.
Oh, I'm impressed. How do you feel about Dalinar's backstory?
I think Dalinar is perhaps the most complex yet consistently drawn character in this book series. Because he's I don't know how Sanderson has accomplished this. Because on one hand, Dalinar is very laird. He is trying to be a righteous man. He is a bruiser. He gets the battle lust. He's very direct and straightforward, and he has done terrible things, but I admire him. He has all of those layers going on all the time. And so I love him. I love him. I think he's amazing. I love all of his chapters. And I really enjoyed his backstory because I feel like every reveal felt very true to him, but I was still kind of seeing elements of him that I hadn't seen before. And I guess that he hadn't realised he had. So yeah, and I could just believe all of it. I can believe him as like the drunken guy trying to drown his sorrows. I can believe him as just like the guy who wants to get the battle done and not bother with politics. And then I believe in who he is now. And the end, when he gets all the glory spread around him, I love every stage of it. I think he's amazing.
Okay. So you having read about his horrible past, that hasn't changed your opinion of him at all?
No, I mean, obviously I do think it's horrible. I don't approve of the things he's done, but it feels consistent to him.
Yeah, and he's striving to be better.
He's striving to be better, and like he got to a place at the end of the book where he takes responsibility for it. And in fact, he does take responsibility for himself. I think throughout, it's not like he was somebody who was like shirking or, I couldn't help it. He never makes excuses for himself. But for a long time, he's not had to reckon with the fullness of what he's done. So yeah, that whole storyline, I loved it. Okay. No criticism, just love.
Dalinar's flashbacks kind of explain the thrill, show examples of the thrill, which we then deal with in the ending of the story. So I think that's not only is it useful to see more of Dalinar's character and understand his complexities, but it's also giving us more information about a later plot point, which I think that is so cool, because like the thrill has been mentioned from the beginning, and I just took it as like, yeah, they get bloodlust, like they're going into battle, they get excited, they give into it, but then to learn by the end of it, it's not just that, it's an entity that provokes that and like bewitches people into it even more. Yeah, very cool concept. Also cool in the same way was cultivation. How like they kept hinting to her like she's out there somewhere, we don't know where, and we can't find her. And like it took me ages to realise when he's speaking to like the Night Watcher. Night Mother is Skyrim.
Night Mother is Skyrim. Yes, it is. And then the other woman comes out, and then it wasn't until she says something like, "Yeah, I'm gonna prune you." I'm like, "Oh, this is cultivation." So yeah, that was really cool. I enjoyed that.
Okay. Who do you think the flashbacks will be in book 4, or who do you want them to be?
Maybe Yasna.
Okay.
Yasna would be interesting because she'd still got
bit of a mystery.
She's a bit of a mystery. She's not been in it an awful lot compared to the others, and I feel like she's got quite a long past that we're piecing it together, but we can't see. How did she get to be the heretic? How did she bond to Spren? With quite a lot about why was she hiring assassins?
We know why she was hiring assassins. She was hiring assassins to protect her family because she loves her family.
Yeah, but
and that's why she doesn't kill Renarin, because she loves her family.
Yeah, that was really cool. But she's still an enigma to me, so I think she would be a good one to get flashbacks from.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity there, isn't there?
Renarin would be another good one to see his flashbacks, because again he has a lot of mystery around him, and I don't quite fully understand what he's been through and how his Spren is different to everybody else's and what's going on there. For a moment, when there's a scene where they steal the big ruby, the fuse to come and steal the big ruby. For a moment or two, I thought that was Renarin. But I think because I saw that there was an illusion, I think, at one point, and that the person was healing themselves. Instantly. Okay. I was like, oh, I wonder if this is Renarin. And because Renarin had been asking about gemstones. Does the city have a big load of gemstones? And they're like, yeah, it does. And then he wanders off.
Why was Renarin asking about gemstones?
I don't know what's going on with Renarin. Why is he trying to figure out stuff with gemstones? Why was he in the room with all the drawers of gemstones and the things? He's trying. There's a mystery that's bothering him that he's trying to solve, and I don't know what it is.
So where is he getting that mystery from?
His Spren. His Spren that can see the future but not quite.
Yeah, so Renarin can see the future.
Yeah, which is not allowed.
We're going to derail the comment about Renarin. How do you feel about Taravangian?
I really don't like him, I think. No. So there's moments, he comes off quite sympathetically at times, because he goes up and down, doesn't he, with his compassion and intelligence. So there are times when he evokes pity. But he is just so ruthless in terms of I'm doing this for the greater good. And he's making a deal with Odium. And I get that his thinking is, well, at least if I can just save some. But I just think that's really stupid. Because if your argument is, I want to save a remnant of humanity in a world that is then going to be surrounded by the embodiment of evil all around.
What's the point?
What is survival actually going to look like? And also there's nothing in Odium that makes you think, here's a guy who I can trust. And I know Odium says, well, I'm not trying to trick you, I'm going to keep to the spirit of the promise. It's still not going to make life pleasant. I think a lot of characters use the argument of, it's for the greater good. And I think, that's the interesting thing about this whole series, is that at its core it is about morality. and quite complex morality and philosophy wrapped in this really like fantastical epic thing. But I think it draws out of me the thought of like, I just think I don't believe in doing evil for the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not quite, you know, like I would tell a white lie if it gets a gunman away from somebody, yes. But would I inflict my own evil onto somebody else in the hopes that it would save other people from similar evil later on? No. You know, like I couldn't murder one person so that somebody else didn't get murdered. Mm-hmm. But that's not even like what's happening with these guys. It's like they deliberately go and murder people in the hopes that strategically in the balance of things it will mean that other people that they quite like won't get murdered later on. Mm-hmm. So none of that holds a particularly strong argument for me.
Okay. Speaking of morality, Dalinar at the end of the book goes to Navani, says, teach me how to read, and then right at the end of the book he starts writing about Oathbringer, how he won the blade, his memoirs, so to speak. What repercussions do you think that's going to have?
Oof, men reading.
That's not really what I meant with that question. I meant like he's writing down all of the bad things that he did in the past.
Oh yeah, of course.
So how do you think people are going to react to that?
We probably wouldn't want him to be High King. That is an element that they're not exploring quite well into that. It is good that Dalinar said, you know, well, I take responsibility and owning it. But really, taking responsibility for mass murder and war crimes normally means you get arrested and you go into prison. Like, you cannot be trusted. But then Dalinar has to be trusted because he's the only one with the power to defend the realm. So what is the right thing to do there?
It's a good question. So Adolin comes at the end of the novel and he tells Dalinar's trying to get Adolin to be king of Alethkar, and Adolin says, well, I killed Sadeas, so I don't think that's a good idea. And Dalinar says to him, we can fix this. This doesn't matter. We can, even though earlier in the novel, like, he'd put out a warrant for the execution of whoever has killed Sadeas. As soon as it is Adolin who is revealed to be the person who's killed Sadeas, he kind of goes back on his word. And he's not going to kill Adolin. That
is a flaw in his character where, like, he says he's accepting it, but really, so far Dalinar has only processed his own emotional turmoil over doing those things and seeking forgiveness, and that's great. But there is a relationship with law and justice, which I guess is where that is it called Nin?
Yeah, Nail.
Nin.
He has several names.
Oh, okay.
Nin is one of them.
Yeah, so there is a thing like, there needs to be a law outside of it, because Dalinar is now the most powerful person in the world, and he has committed war crimes, murdered his wife and children, done all this stuff. That should be held to account. You can't just say, well, he's forgiven himself. He's got closure. I'm sure it's fine now. So yeah, I don't know what will happen with that. I don't think a lot though, because who's going to come and arrest Dalinar?
Right, exactly. Exactly. He is one of the most powerful people in the world. Who is there to challenge him?
Yeah.
But, so he said that to Adolin, like, we'll sweep that under the carpet. But then Dalinar also thinks Adolin is not the man that I thought he was. Yeah. And me immediately, I'm like, shut up, Dalinar. Neither are you. What do you think their relationship is going to be like going forwards? Because Dalinar's opinion of Adolin has now changed.
Yeah.
Dalinar is writing a book about how he killed his wife, Adolin's mother.
Last time I predicted that Adolin killing Sadeas was going to cause a huge rift between them, and it has not at all.
Dalinar was like, well, yeah, it doesn't matter, we'll just get over it.
I feel like Adolin is in quite an interesting place, and I'd like to see it explored a bit, because so far he has been a follower. He has done what's needed to be done, he's done what his dad wants him to do, he's just tried to serve, he knows his position, he knows where he sits in the world. And now all of that has changed a bit, and he's not the most powerful person in the group. And I hope that stays. At one point I was like, oh, is Adolin going to become a Night Radiant? But actually, it's a bit like Xander and Buffy. It's kind of... Although Adolin's better than Xander. But it is interesting to keep one character relatively normal and have to, like, just be fighting really hard just to keep up. So I think it would be interesting if Adolin stays that way, but still plays a significant part in the adventures to come without being a chosen one.
While we're talking about Adolin, let's talk about Maya. His sword, the spread with the scratched out eyes in Shadesmar. do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, it looks to me like the door is now open for the dead Sprens to be resurrected again. Okay. Maybe as humans regain their honour.
Okay.
Or find a way to connect with them, or if the realms become closer together again. I don't really understand the cognitive realm, the spiritual realm, and the physical realm, and how they're separate, but then they can be brought together. I don't really get that, but maybe if something like that gets brought together, maybe there's chance for resurrection for the Sprens. Because they're there. They're walking around, and it feels like a bit of her personality was like coming back, so maybe
she saved him.
She saved him.
Maya. Is there anything else you specifically want to talk about?
There were like 3 really cool lines that I loved in it. One,
can you remember them?
One was when Shallan and Wit were talking in the house after all of Shallan's contacts were murdered by thugs.
Yeah.
And she was really broken about that. And then Wit talked to her, and he talked about failure and like, you've just got to keep going. You tried to help the people of the market. You mostly failed. This is life. The longer you live, the more you fail. Failure is the mark of a life well lived. In truth, the only way to live without failure is to be of no use to anyone. Trust me, I've practiced. I loved that. I really liked that whole scene. And a lot of the time, again, I feel this is a bad confession to make, but a lot of the time, Wit's scenes with people feels a bit too like on the nose, dialogue wise, and again, I don't vibe with the humour.
Okay.
So when there's ever like 2 witty people that are meant to be really funny and trading spars, it doesn't quite hit for me. But that conversation, I really enjoyed that. So that was a great line I loved. I also liked a bit where the merchant woman is talking with her old merchant person. Rian, is that what she's called?
What? So Risen. Yeah. Sorry. Who is the merchant woman? Risen and Wisdom.
Yes, they're talking together and they mention like some old fables, and she goes, "You don't believe that old story?" And he says, "You don't have to believe a story happened to believe in it." It's like, oh, yes, exactly. And then the other really good line I like was in the big battle at the end when Dalinar starts walking out into the other army, and he says to Kaladin, "The enemy brought a big stick to this battle. I'm gonna go take it from him." Yeah, go Dalinar. So those are just some really like cool lines that we go like, yes.
What would you say was your favourite moment in the novel?
It's hard not to pick anything in the last battle. I liked Dalinar going and facing Odium and taking his moment and saying he's then going to go take away the big stick. I also really liked, even though it's quite a quiet moment and it hasn't led to anywhere particularly good, but I really like the scenes with Moash early on joining up with the Parshmen and him trying to find his place, even though I don't like the place where he's ended up. I enjoyed that.
Okay. You, in our last videos, you said that you wanted to learn more about the Parshmen, the Parshendi, the listeners, the singers. I feel like we do get a lot of that in Oathbringer.
Yeah, we do.
We get Kaladin with them, we get Moash with them, we get all the stuff in Dalinar with the Fused. And obviously the Fused aren't the Parshendi. They're something different. But
yeah.
Are you happy with the information that we got about
I love them so much, and the more we find out, the more interesting we become. So now we've figured out that they are the original inhabitants of this world as well, which makes so much sense in terms of like,
does, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the way they communicate through singing and rhythms, and how like they're singers and they're listeners, and they can hear not just one another but like the land itself, and they're that connected. And it also now makes sense. Oh, I might be wrong, but now it makes more sense why so much of the land is hard and rock and stone, because their bodies are kind of suited to that, and then they had like specially cultivated places that they wanted the humans to live.
Shinova.
So that all makes so much sense. It's so consistent, and I still really feel for them, and I want them to get free from Odium and the Fused and all that, because like they have their own culture and
Odium came with the humans.
This is what's confusing me, right? I have spotted this. So the humans are described as Voidbringers.
Yeah.
And they came, and Odium is like the void. Like he's been described as this black hole that sucks everything away, and he wants to take their emotions, and he's got nothing really to offer apart from nothingness. And yet Odium's now positioned himself as the Parshendi's god, and not the humans' god. So what happened there? Like, was Odium like an enemy that like followed on their coattails and is just taking advantage where he can? What is going on?
So I feel like you're asking questions that I can't really understand because it is. So it's to do with shards. Who in the Cosmere, there's like God, Adonelsium, God, who was shattered into 16 shards, and the shards are like physical, maybe not physical, but embodiments of a certain characteristic. Honor, cultivation, odium are the 3 examples we have in this book.
Yeah.
And there's other examples throughout the Cosmere, and they like go to planets and are like rulers of that planet and invest the planet in power. So I don't really know how odium came with the humans. I don't know. But honor and cultivation are from Roshar. Well, they claimed Roshar as their world.
Yeah.
And the humans came to Roshar with odium from wherever their planet was before.
Yeah.
So I don't really have the answer to your question, but I feel like it's too
soon to know.
I don't know.
But it is so interesting because we also know that the listeners, singers, they rejected their gods as well. So I assume that includes Odium. Like at one point they have rejected him. Yeah.
So I think with the listeners, so they're in time before the series started, when the Desolation was starting, the Fused and Odium became their gods.
Yeah. And
they rejected them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Even though originally they weren't their gods.
Yes.
I think. So Odium, my understanding of it is, the humans came to the world, claimed honor as their god, started bonding Spren, etc, etc. Odium got involved with the Parshendi, invested them with the power to make the Fused. I don't really know.
No. I want to find out though.
Yeah, same.
And I have faith that we will find out stuff, you know, like, so much has like paid off that I think this will pay off too. Oh, and I should say that there were a couple of bits, I'm remembering now the couple of bits in the book that didn't work as well for me. So one was when they got to Kholinar. Kholinar. When they got to Kholinar, and it just felt like they faffed around for a very long time before actually trying to get to the Oath Gate.
Okay.
So I think that's where like I felt like the pace sucked, and I get that like the strategy, and, you know, a lot of things like, oh, how are we going to feed all the people in the markets, and oh, let's go and meet the city guard. I'm like, Shallan can make illusions, and there's a whole group of people going to the Oath Gate every night. Just blend in, dudes. Like just.
But I mean, I see where you're coming from, but they had to get there and understand what was happening and make a strategy. And yeah, Shallan did faff her out with all the food and things like that. But that was her trying to get invited to the revel, because I don't think you can get there without being invited. Like they would stop you going in, I think.
Yeah, but could they not have just like, you know, pick some guards to copy, pick some like revelers to copy, and just like, you know, like she could also disguise herself as a wall and just move really slowly on the edge of the thing. You know what I mean? Like it felt like there was a lot of options they could have tried that they just kind of like faffed around in until like, oh no, they're actually attacking now. You know, so that I think I felt like whilst I was reading it, a lot of that wasn't going to go anywhere. And it didn't in this book, maybe it will in other books. And then the other bit that I wasn't as interested in was when they got stuck in Shadesmere. Again, it just felt like we were there a long time. Oh, and the woman, what's she called? Azure. She felt like she's a character from another book who's just stepped into this one for a few bits. And we were just meant to go, oh, she's cool, and that was it.
Okay.
Is that?
Well, so the first time that I read Oathbringer, I hadn't read the book that Azure is from. Now that I have, and when I read Oathbringer this time, I was like, ooh, who's Azure? I know her. Yeah, I do see what you mean.
I think felt like fan service. So if you know it, you're like, yeah, that's cool, she's in here too. But if you not know, you're like, so? Maybe she's going to come back and do some interesting stuff later on.
I don't know. Part of me thinks, I think there's, so this is from a standalone novel that will have a sequel one day.
Okay.
So I think maybe it's more setting up for that sequel. I think I like Shadesmar because it has Adel and Maya in it, and they're just like besties to, I mean, I know that they're not besties, but to me they're besties.
Yeah. I was glad the love triangle's resolved. I'm glad it's resolved with Shallan choosing Adeline. But I also didn't really buy into it either. And I think another thing that
it does feel very forced.
Yeah. I think it also feels a little bit forced. And I can understand thematically where it's coming from, but the whole thing of Shallan being 3 personalities, like, oh, I've got Radiant and I've got Vale and there's Shallan. And I feel like she's the only one who really believes those other personalities like exist. I don't think she's particularly convincing as Radiant or as Vale. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you really think like, oh, there's one side of Shallan who's like, she's a hard street nut and she's going to do what she wants? Like, she's always Shallan just bumbling into stuff and getting things done and trying to like appear a certain way.
She does acknowledge that though. Like the whole reason that she fails in Kholinar is because she isn't Vale. She doesn't have that experience. It is a mask that she's putting on. But I think there's more going on with Shallan that I don't know. Like, I get that. I do understand. Maybe it's how it's being delivered rather than the idea of it. I want to say things about Shallan, but then I feel like it's going to be too much of a leading question, so I'm not going to. But there is more going on there, I think, is all I'm going to say. Yeah, and I did find it a nice moment then towards the end when Adeline, you know, comes to comfort her and she tries to like flip between the personalities, and he just like he waits. He knows who. Yeah. He waits until like, no, you can just be yourself. You're all right. And I think that shows that she's with the right guy. Yeah, so I'm glad that we're done with the love triangle stuff. Okay. Or are we? Oh, I loved it towards the end where Kaladin like failed to say the next set of words. And you know, he's going around the battle and he's saying, maybe I failed because, you know, it feels like you're too hard on yourself. Like, I am too hard on myself. I wonder if that's why I couldn't say the words. And she went, Kyle, oh yeah, I'll think about this later. What do you think the next set of words are? I don't know. I need to try and find a way to safely look up what are the stages of words because I keep forgetting. When Cal is building up to saying the words, or is thinking about saying the words, in Shadesmar, there's like little beads of light around him that are Windspren. Yeah. What do you think's going on there? I don't know. So Windspren and Honorspren now seem to be connected because like if you were saying that in the other world, it'd be Glory Spren. That would have come to mind, I'd imagine. And Syl is Honorspren, but she disguises herself as Windspren. I don't know, but there is a connection. There is a connection. I know what it is. I'm only one book behind you now. And then I won't have any high ground. Oh. Here's a quote. When they storm Kholinar and they're in the palace and Aesidon is there and they're having this conversation, Aesidon says to Elhokar, I found the secret of your father's work. Ooh. What the heck is this girl up to? I feel like I've taken that out of context of the situation, so you might not know what she's talking about, but she's saying that to Elhokar about Gavilar. It's something about gemstones and Spren. And because I don't like in the way that the humans use Spren is that they capture them in fables and kind of like imprison them and force them to do stuff. That's kind of what the listeners do as well, because they capture them in their gem hearts. Yeah, but I feel like the listeners have a more symbiotic relationship. Yes, and I wonder if Gavilar was trying to find a way to be more nice to the Spren, to like make it's a partnership rather than imprisonment. Maybe he was going to release all the fables. Okay, it is clear that the humans have built their empires on like capturing Spren and enslaving the listeners. Woohoo! It's very consistent with empire building, but like maybe there's a better way. This isn't strictly a question for you, but there's this chapter where Kaladin, when they're in Shadesmar, he's thinking about some girl that he was into back in the war, and I just don't understand why Brandon insists on giving Kaladin romantic history. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, it didn't.
Fine with Laurel, because that's when they're kids and that, but I just feel that's not who Kaladin is.
No, Kaladin wouldn't have casual romantic relationships.
I agree.
He falls head over heels. He would protect them for the rest of their lives. Yeah.
I think, especially in that situation that he's thinking of, he's lost Tien. All of his thoughts are on Tien, on getting to the Shattered Plains. Like, he's holding this rock. This girl is like, oh, come with me. I'm leaving the army. Come with me. Yeah. And he thinks, I can't do that because I'm here for the memory of Tien. Yeah. So why would he even entertain that idea in the first place?
I don't know. And that is... And, like, the point of that seemed to be was, like, Kaladin was, like, reminding himself that he needs to live for the living.
That's what the chapter's called, For the Living.
There you go.
Oh, look at that memory.
Can't pronounce anything, but occasional phrases get through. And I just think, like, there's other ways that Kaladin can remember that lesson or learn that lesson. I think that is... I do really love these books, but there are times where, like, my editor head goes on, I'm like, this is...
There was a better way to do this.
There's a better way, or this just wasn't needed, or, you know, it adds a bit of, like, drag to the story. And again, even in the last battle, which, you know, I raced through and I read, I did start skim reading, like, Kaladin's battle with Amaram because, I mean, I checked for, like, the dialogue and stuff, and, like, there's for me, there wasn't that much interesting happening there. And it was a lot of, like, oh, I'm fighting him, then Sybil goes, Dalinar! And he has to turn around and fight the fused off. Okay. And it skips, like, the other people, and it comes back, and Kaladin's just doing the same thing again. Okay. So I was a bit like, I understand what's happening there. Come back to me when something changes in this situation. Okay. Oh, another thing. Sorry, it's not connected.
It's alright.
In my head it was. I think when we talked not on camera, or part of the book, I said I didn't like when Colin fell. Yeah. That they just left behind the little prince. Like, nobody mentioned it. Like, they just all left, and nobody's like, oh, we left a 3-year-old boy with a clearly evil mother. Yeah. And nobody once in that scene went, we should get the kid back. I know the king's dead, but we should save the son, the heir. And all he did, I think, and then in the very last bit of the book, like, oh, the Bridge 4 men saved him.
God, yeah, he saved him. I remember at that point, when you got to that point in the book, you thought that Gavilar might become, like, the big bad. Yeah. Like, he's been left behind with Aesodan, who's clearly bad. She's swallowed this crystal, she's turned into a scary monster, and they've left this boy behind with her. Yeah. And you thought he might turn into a big bad.
Yeah. I mean, he still might.
He still might, yeah.
But at least somebody tried to rescue him. Like, at least somebody got him out.
Bridge 4.
Yeah. Bridge 4.
Bridge 4. Okay, my last point to raise your interest to. We had a couple of allusions to Yasna's lunacy as a child. Do you have any thoughts about that?
No, this is why I think she'd be interesting to do flashbacks for. Okay. There's a lot about her past I haven't pieced together yet.
Predictions. What do you think is going to happen next book? Okay.
I think the Ghostbloods need to do something again. Okay. They've gone very quiet. Sorry, my phone lit up, I didn't know why. Yeah, I don't even particularly enjoy the Ghostbloods, but, like, they weren't around for a lot of this, and then they're like, by the way, who are your brothers back? So I guess the brothers need to do some stuff now too. Shallan's brothers. Okay. Adolin and Maya need to, like, become best buddies, but not a Radiant. I don't know if that can work. There needs to be a breakaway listener singer group who decide to rebel against Odium and become, like...
We never talked about Venli.
Venli is cool. Okay. And I like her.
End of conversation.
Cool. I obviously hated it in the first couple of books, but she's the only one left. So
that's Relaine.
It's Relaine.
There's Relaine.
Relaine.
The Bridge 4.
Oh, there's Relaine. Yeah, there is. He's not been in it that much either.
No, he hasn't. So you want more of him?
More of him.
More of Venli.
More of Venli. Venli's in a very interesting position.
Sorry, you think there's going to be a listener breakaway?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a listener. Yeah. Some people who, like, try and get out from Odium and try and escape. They need to be like the new Bridge 4. I'm never going to top guessing that.
No, you're really not. You're really not.
Peaked early.
Genuinely, where did that even come from?
I think I just thought what would drive you to... I thought he'd intentionally deleted memories of his wife. And that's what I thought would drive you to do that. I guess it'd be nice to hear more of Honor's death and what happened and what that meant and why he did the things he did.
Okay. Prologue, next book.
Oh,
Do you know what? Before we talk about that, I have only read Rhythm of War once, and I can't remember much about what a lot of people do. I can remember what the trio do.
Yeah.
The young trio, you know what I mean. The non-love triangle, love triangle. I can remember what Navani does. That's it. Everything else is a mystery.
Oh.
Like, I can remember other like beats and things, but those are the only plot lines that I remember.
Do you know what else I'm wondering about? Because the prologue keeps going back to the night of the assassination.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I know who ordered the assassination and why,
Mm-hmm.
what's left?
Oh, that's an interesting question, Cathy. Who do you think we're going to be in the head of in the next book for that night of the assassination?
Like, what else was going on that night that I now need to know about?
It's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe we've not been in Gavilar's head.
We haven't been in Gavilar's head.
That would be interesting
Who
because
else's head haven't we been
he's
in?
got some mysteries. But hang on, we were in.
We're in Sveth, Yasna,
Ashonai. Navani.
We're in Navani's head.
She would be good on TV. She's got a good head too.
She has got the best head. I love her so much.
Yeah.
She might be my favourite character, to be quite honest.
I like that she is, like, she wants what she wants and she does what she does and she's unapologetic about it and I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she's smart.
She's smart. She's a lot smarter than she gives herself credit for.
Yeah.
Like, especially in this book, there's times when she thinks about how she's just like a patron of the Ardents and things like that. But then she comes out, she designs things.
Yeah,
she's
she
like,
does.
This is an idea that I've had. Could somebody make it, please? But having the idea is half of the battle, Navani.
Yeah.
Give yourself more credit, girl.
Yeah, she's great. Oh, well, I'm looking forward to that then.
I think so. You want to read Rhythm of War?
Yes.
Now, friends, I've brought Rhythm of War with me, so I will symbolically give it to Cathy, but she can't actually read it yet because we're having a little bit of a break.
Okay.
However, so between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, there was a little novella that dealt with Lift. Between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War, there is another little novel called Dawn Shard that is about Risen and the Lopen. And I can't remember much about it. Do you want to read that? No.
I'm just sticking to the big books.
Outrageous.
If you have read this, please let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to get into a good natter about it. If you've enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye.
I feel like there's so much that we haven't talked about. We haven't talked about any of the Unmade. We haven't talked about any of the interludes, but this video is already 50 minutes long. So.
I could talk about this book all day. Probably shouldn't. I want to read the next book.
These are just notes about memes that I might make one day. And then, here's this deeply shameful thing I did that has been weighing me down, notebook. Shallan. Oh well!